New year, new me? Cute. But how about new year, new money? With Experian, you can actually take control of your finances. Check your FICO score, find ways to save, and get matched with credit card offers, giving you time to power through those New Year's goals you know you're going to crush. Start the year off right. Download the Experian app. Based on FICO score rate model. Offers and approval not guaranteed. Eligibility requirements and terms apply. Subject to credit check, which may impact your credit scores. Offers not available in all states. See Experian.com for details.
Experian. New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi and welcome. Pull up a chair and put on your thinking cap. Here's what you'll learn on The Last Show University tonight, except you won't get a degree. Okay, so police are starting to use AI to write their police reports, and one of them ended up saying that an officer in an incident turned into a frog. Seriously. So what went wrong with this auto-generated report based on body cam footage? And why a frog? We'll tell you that in about 10 minutes' time. Then after that, how does a healthy giraffe tragically die inside a world-class zoo? A 13-year-old giraffe was crushed by a gate at the Toronto Zoo, and people are asking, how could this happen? Halfway through the hour, we'll unpack the incident and cover what captivity really means for exotic animals. All right, that's some of what we'll cover tonight. There will be more. You will learn more, but for now, let's dive in with stories from the tech industry today.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
We are here to cover the tech stories of the day with tech analyst Carmi Levy, and the most important top story that you need to know about involves robotic bunnies to fight invasive Burmese pythons. Carmi, welcome to the show.
Start with bunnies. That's always the best.
And then add the word robotic, and then you're even doing better. And then add the word pythons, and it's the best story of the year. Oh, and then even more. Add the word Florida, and maybe the best story of the century.
It's funny. I've been to Florida. I've walked around, in and around the Everglades. I've been in kind of rural Florida where you probably should be close to a vehicle or carry a gun because Lord knows the wildlife there can kill you.
And the people, but keep going.
Yeah, and so I did not know this. I did not know that the Burmese python is not native to Florida. It is an invasive species, and over the past number of years, it has decimated in some areas small mammals and birds. In some places, up to 95% of the small mammal population.
These are not small snakes. They can grow up like over 15 feet. These are serious beasts. These are basically biblical level serpents.
They are, and they'll squeeze you to death and you're done. And what's scary about them is they're incredibly good at camouflage, and to the point that an estimated only 1 to 3% of all the Burmese pythons that are out in the wild have ever been located because they're just so good at hiding themselves. And so when conservationists try to control the exploding population, they can't because they can't catch them. And so normally you'd use decoys or you'd use humans to go out into the wild and look for them, but that hasn't worked because of this camouflage. And so they've created this robotic bunny, a cyber bunny, that uses some pretty intense technology to fake out the pythons and get them to think that this is an actual bunny. And then they use that as a lure. And then once they identify them, they can then go catch them. And so these bunnies they cost about $4,000 a piece. They have about 120 of them deployed so far. And they have internal heaters, so they're kind of just warm enough to as a regular rabbit.
Because don't snakes sense infrared and heat and that kind of thing
they
their
do.
prey?
They're incredibly sensitive, right? And so they can sense things like temperature and movement and smell. And if something isn't quite right, they won't take the bait. And so these they've used those three things. So internal heaters to sort of mimic the heat signature of an actual rabbit, solar powered motors to replicate, we know when rabbits twitch. So they'll twitch using these motors, again, to fool the snake. And then aroma diffusers that release synthetic scents that smell a lot like rabbits. I don't know what rabbit smell is, but clearly these researchers do. And so they put them out in the wild, and then they put cameras around them, and they're network connected cameras. And then they trap them. And then when they trap one, humans go collect them and then release them humanely somewhere else. And so, this is a technological answer to a biological environmental problem that will hopefully level the playing field and ensure that native species can thrive, because right now they're not. This thing is killing everything and it needs to be removed.
So the rabbits attract the snakes. Then what happens? Like the local, wildlife authorities grab them in a bag kind of thing?
Yeah, they watch them online because it's basically like a live stream, and they watch them. And when the snake comes along and tries to attack the robotic rabbit, that's the trigger for the human conservation officers to move in and capture them and then move them. They say it's done humanely. I wouldn't be so humane if I were faced with a 15-foot snake, but hey, maybe that's just me.
I, for one, welcome our robotic rabbit overlords.
Yeah, I prefer robotic rabbit overlords to snake overlords. So, let's go with the technology. Go technology.
I just feel like there's a timeline out there, if you believe in the multiverse and many universes, and every decision gets branched using quantum mechanics, blah, 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 blah. There is a world where these AI robots trying to catch snakes actually take over the world. And that timeline is about as stupid as the one we're living in now.
Wouldn't bet against it.
Now, to be clear, these rabbits are not AI yet, but who knows what the future holds.
They could be, exactly. Maybe version 2 will have AI built into it, and I think that's when we should start getting worried. But for now, go robots, bad snakes. Let's keep it going.
I'm of mixed mind for our next story because I do think the future of your personal health, like your doctor visit and medicine, is going to involve AI to diagnose you, to look at your medical data and make decisions very quickly about what you might have, how to be more healthy, that kind of thing. I'm of two minds because I think that technology is coming and I think it's going to be great for your health. But I think the first implementations of it are going to be a nightmare. And to that end, OpenAI is launching ChatGPT Health, which is going to connect with your medical records. It's going to enable wellness apps, and it's basically going to be AI for your personal health. And I have no confidence that, version 1 isn't going to have any problems, let alone all kinds of privacy issues. So I'm kind of worried about this. I would never be the first one to connect my medical records to ChatGPT. But on the other end, I'm kind of glad these products are coming out.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the fox guarding the hen house because OpenAI, we've had this conversation about them before, that this is not a company that anybody should trust. Their first move when they released ChatGPT, in order to have ChatGPT, they had to scour the internet and steal everyone's information without telling them that they were stealing it, and certainly not asking their permission, and certainly not apologizing after the fact. So they've been sued 6 ways from Sunday ever since, and they're still in court in a number of jurisdictions over this mass data theft. And now we're supposed to trust them that, when they say we're going to create ChatGPT Health and you can connect it to your health information, but don't worry, we're going to put it in a secure box and we're not going to share that information with anyone. We're not going to use it to train our models. It's not going to go outside of that box. There will be no flow. Do you trust them? No, because history suggests otherwise. But I think you're absolutely right. We are in a national health crisis. We need to find better ways of delivering healthcare in this environment. And technology, particularly artificial intelligence, is one key way of doing that. And so, I think we're going to have to get through the scary parts and, maybe sort of, suck it up a little bit when OpenAI says they're going to introduce this and get, battered and bruised along the way until version 2, version 3, and version 4 come out. But let's be clear, this will not be a linear path. And unfortunately, there will be risks that we're exposed to along the way if we want to be part of this journey.
But I do see a future where I get a CT scan or I get an X-ray and then that imaging data gets fed into a large language model or some kind of AI image, whatever, some ChatGPT-like product, and then tells me very quickly some possible diagnoses for my problem that a doctor or a technician might have missed. I do think there's a bright future for this. I do think medicine is a really good area for AI to be deployed. But again, privacy issues, early models that aren't very accurate and then misdiagnose or give false positives or false negatives. Like, this is what I'm worried about, and that's why I'm kind of shaking my head. But I guess there's got to be a first mover, right? Like,
yeah, you got to start somewhere, and certainly there will be warts along the way, and there will be glitches, and but at the same time, we've had Dr. Google for a couple of decades, and yeah, it isn't ideal, but I think we can argue that for most people, it gives them a little bit more insight into their health, gives them more to talk about when they go see their doctor. AI will do exactly the same thing.
I would have called the product WebMD GPT. Open WebMD GPT. Okay,
there's a partnership.
When we come back from the break with Carmi Levy, tech analyst, we'll tell you why a police department in Utah was forced to explain why one of the reports declared an officer had shape-shifted into a frog. Spoiler, this is what happens when you use AI with policing. We'll discuss this and tell you more about it after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It is time for Technology Time, one of my favorite times of the week with Carmi Levy, a tech analyst from London, Ontario, Canada. Carmi, welcome to the show. Do you want to head to Utah with me near Salt Lake City sometime soon?
I would love to. I hear the photography is amazing, but I hear they have some challenges with AI as well. Who knew?
So I guess a cop used AI to help write a report, brought it to court or whatever, and then had to explain why in the report it claimed a police officer shapeshifted into a frog. Unless that actually happened, which, I'm not saying it didn't. I don't have evidence that it didn't, but I do have doubts. I think there's a problem with using AI, and AI hallucinating in legal proceedings and police proceedings is very worrisome.
Yeah, so they were using a technology. It's called Draft One, which basically generates police reports from body camera footage. And it comes from a company called Axon, who, not coincidentally, they make the body cams that most law enforcement agencies wear. So imagine you've been out, you're on a call, you come back to the station. Instead of writing this thing manually, you just allow the AI, Draft One, to analyze the video footage and then write the report. Unfortunately, within that footage, there was a Disney movie, The Princess and the Frog, playing in the background that was included in some of that footage. And so when the report was generated, it actually, the officer was, became the frog in the movie. This is an example of AI hallucinating, and it's also an example of the officer failing to read the output from the AI before submitting it as, the official report. And I think this is a huge problem. AI does get it wrong, in some cases upwards of 50% of the time. And if you are not checking the work, and if you are not validating everything before you click final or send or publish, you're going to get in trouble. And this is just the latest example of that. They're not backing down from using the technology. They're still using Draft One. They're evaluating it against another platform. I think we're going to see more of this in law enforcement going forward and other sectors, including healthcare, because it saves professionals a heck of a lot of time. And would you rather cops be sitting in offices writing reports, or would you rather them be out on the street providing policing?
That's an interesting question, because I've been in the car with a friend where a cop pulled them over for going 10 over the limit, and then it's just like a warning. And I suspect it's because what is writing but homework? And so writing out tickets is the homework part of policing, and cops hate homework. And so I feel like a lot of people get off for little things that they shouldn't get tickets for because the cop couldn't be bothered to write the ticket and fill out the report. Now, if they can use AI to do it, they can write more tickets, But
and that may very well be. And so we see as the administration, or what I like to call administrivia, becomes less, let's call it cumbersome, then maybe there will be more time for cops to patrol and more time for doctors to be doctors.
Don't you want the state's like legal and policing apparatus when it has writing in it, for like bureaucracy in it for that writing to be accurate? Like that's my big worry.
Yeah,
like legal materials AI generated, whether it's police reports, laws, court proceedings, who knows what. Don't you want it to be accurate and well thought out?
Of course. And that's the problem with a lot of these deployments that we've been hearing from healthcare, law enforcement, the judicial system, lawyers submitting briefs with made-up cases because they didn't bother reading the output from ChatGPT, and that's been happening time and again. And so I think the problem here isn't necessarily, I mean, it is one of technology because the technology is fundamentally flawed. This is just the way the architecture is built. But what's worse is we don't have protocols or procedures in place to account for that, for humans to be the final step in validating that. We don't have validation steps. And so it's allowing these things to slip through the cracks. And that's why we keep seeing headlines like this. And so I think until the technology improves, we need better human oversight and we need better training. And clearly that isn't happening in, Heber City, Utah. And it's not happening in a lot of other jurisdictions that are seeing AI as some kind of magic bullet when in fact it isn't.
Unless the cop did turn into a frog. That is something that could have happened.
That's entirely possible, but I'm also willing to bet that was probably an image generator or something. So that's also probably deepfake.
All right. I'm not such like a tech fetishist. Is that the right word? That seems wrong. I'm not such a tech admirer.
That's gonna get the CRTC calling us.
I don't think so. I've done much worse. I'm not so into like all the tech buzz around new products and stuff, but I do think CES, Consumer Electronics Show, is that what it's called? Yes. The big tech conference in Vegas every year where every big company like Samsung and Apple and all of them like reveal their next generation of technology, whether it's going to go to market or not, whether these products will ever exist or not. That remains to be determined in some cases. But what are some of the things that are going on for CES 2026, which is now, I believe, underway?
Yeah, it's underway. It's underway until Friday, so tomorrow. And the cool thing about that, and you're right, it is sort of, if you want to know what the major trends in tech are going to be over the next year-ish, CES is always sort of the place to be. And it's the biggest of the big, 140,000+ attendees, 4,500 exhibitors, 6,500 media from around the world, 2.5 million square feet, which basically means you can walk this thing for the entire week and not see everything.
I don't actually agree with you. I think if you want to get a good pulse on what the future of tech is going to be, there's like a 50-50 chance because all these companies are going to claim that certain things are the future and then they'll never go to market with their products. It's just a demo. So some of the stuff is hot air. Some of the stuff will be on the shelves in the coming months.
That's the problem with CES is that there's so much noise and so much hype that it's really hard to cut through all that noise and hype to find what the actual stories are. And everyone's screaming over each other to be heard. And in many cases, and history bears this out, there are a lot of introductions or announcements at CES that result in products and services that we will never buy or will take years to reach the market. And, for example, Samsung's been hammering this thing called the Bali, a robot. They first introduced it at CES in 2020. Then they reintroduced it last year at CES, and they've introduced it again at CES this year, and no one knows when it's going to be available or how much it will cost. And so in a way, it sees the future, but also it's a very fuzzy view of that future. You sort of have to take it with a very large grain of salt and recognize that for a lot of people, going to CES is just an excuse to party with friends of theirs in the industry for a week.
Nerd parties, no comment.
Yeah, they are kind of scary, as you know.
Are we seeing any stupid AI devices like an AI toaster or an AI vacuum? Like, are we seeing stuff like that?
Yeah, there's an AI lollipop, which kind of freaked me out. It uses
What?
It uses bone conduction to play music while you suck on it. So yes,
Ew.
I can say officially that it sucks. It costs $9, and then of course once you finish the lollipop, you're throwing it out and adding to landfill.
This is a bad omen. The tech market is about to crash. I'll tell you, the AI lollipop means an AI crash is imminent. I wouldn't be surprised if it's happening while we talk right now.
I'm with you, and I'll be listening with my AirPods. I'll stick to those.
Now, any other things that we're excited about? A lot in the TV space. I'm not really a TV nerd, but there are those among us that are.
It's sort of become a TV thing every year. What are the biggest and coolest screens? This year, sort of hot button technology is what's known as micro RGB. Bottom line is bigger screens that are brighter and cheaper than OLED. And also,
that's nice to hear for the average consumer. Like, I don't think the average consumer cares about 4K, 5K pixels luminosity, but price is where they're really
exactly.
looking.
I want more inches, and I want it to be cheaper, and I don't want it to burn in. Sorry, that didn't mean for it to sound
more
that
inches
way,
and cheaper. You heard it here first.
And we're starting to see a shift toward 5K and 6K, and even some vendors saying they want to do 3D again. So, would you spend extra for it? No, because we've, been there, bought that T-shirt in previous years. 3D is a non-starter, but I will certainly, when the screen in my living room dies, I wouldn't complain if my next one were larger and cheaper.
I wouldn't either. 3D, I just get nauseous. I don't get it. I just get so
Yeah,
nauseous.
I can't do 3D. Even if I go to a theater and there's the choice, do you see it in 3D or not? I always pick the non-version. My family hates me because of it, because I just get sick and I just can't tolerate it.
The current run on consumer memory modules and consumer storage modules, solid state storage, basically for the layperson, the memory in your laptop and how much storage it has. Is there any resolution to that, or are these companies saying anything about that? Or are they keeping tight-lipped, knowing that the prices are going up?
Keeping pretty tight-lipped. Some companies like Framework, for example, they make those modular laptops. They've announced some price increases. Acer and Asus have also sort of bumped some prices, but everyone else is staying fairly silent. What's scary, though, is if you look at sort of the average configuration of devices that are being released, RAM they're pulling it back. So what might have been a 16 gig device last year is now an 8 gig device now, and some companies will even sell you laptops with no memory at all, and then you can add your own or build a desktop computer with your own memory because the price is just too variable.
Well, I remember Bill Gates said, in the 90s or maybe 80s, no one needs more than 640 kilobytes of memory, which is half a megabyte. Carmi, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you doing the show.
Great being with you. Thanks, David.
Up next, a beloved giraffe crushed by a zoo gate. Accident or failure? How could this happen? Who's responsible? What are the details? That in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In postseason football, you need to find that extra gear. On FanDuel, it's called Playoff Mode. Big boosts, more rewards, and a whole new way to live parlay with Drive SGP. Turn on Playoff Mode, only on FanDuel.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
It's that time of the week, Vet Talk or Pet Talk, not sure what the name of what we do is. And there's very good news for those who have a personal vendetta against giraffes. But for the rest of us, kind of horrifying news. A giraffe has sadly passed away after being caught in a doorway at the Toronto Zoo. We are joined by Dr. Cliff Redford, a veterinarian probably. I've not inspected his certificate, to discuss this upsetting story and maybe discuss exotic animals and how we should keep them, etc. Cliff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. If I send you a copy of my diploma, would you believe it?
Well, it could be a forgery.
It'd be pretty easy to forge it.
Do you believe I have a undergraduate degree? Do you believe I have a high school diploma?
I don't know. I never really thought about it.
Exactly.
Sure. Why wouldn't you? But that's not a credential that, I don't know. Anyways.
I'm a certified neighborhood idiot, but there's no board certifying
See, that I believe. I do not need to see paperwork for that.
Cliff, I believe you're a veterinarian. I see the videos. I saw a wonderful documentary of you practicing veterinary medicine. I'm just messing with you,
I'm not practicing it. I'm doing it. I'm not playing it. I'm not, whatever.
Why is that? Why is that with like veterinarian and medical science? They say practice. It does seem stupid.
Maybe it's because we're always attempting to become better and get, perfection, and we know we'll never reach it. So we want to always act like we're trying to improve it. I don't know.
If I'm an actor and I say I'm at my practice, you think, oh, you're just not good enough yet to do the thing you need to do. But if I'm a doctor and I say I'm at my practice, this is going nowhere, Cliff. Let's talk about the giraffe.
If you're an actor and you're practicing, you're doing a warm-up. You're doing what's it called? An audition.
Let's talk about these giraffes before.
Okay.
We've lost literally everyone. And by one, I mean my mother. She's our only listener. We've lost her. So let's get her back on track here.
Come on, Mama Cooper. Come listen. Okay, Kiko, the 13-year-old male Maasai giraffe, unfortunately passed away. He got trapped in this giant automatic door And, their necks are very fragile. They got these beautiful 6-foot necks that can rotate left and right and up and down, and they're so flexible, but it also makes them fragile. So the thought from the experts, and because they're a proper accredited zoo, they've sent Kiko's body off to the University of Guelph for postmortem just to make sure. But they're quite confident that he suffered an injury to his neck. The issue, too, with these herd animals is when they get trapped, they get this condition called capture myopathy. Myopathy basically means disease of the muscle. So they become so stressed out. The body produces all these sort of adrenaline chemicals and endorphins, and the muscle starts to break down very quickly. The heart starts going too fast, and they basically have a physical and emotional panic attack, and it can kill them. They can have a heart attack. They can have all these toxins that are released from their muscles into their body. So maybe that played a role. It's very, very sad. Kiko was an expecting father.
Oh,
He was an expecting father. Mistari is the female that was carrying Kiko's calf.
oh man.
So
That
very, very
sucks.
sad with that. So all this really sucks. The thing that, we could talk about zoos and, people are sort of slowly sliding away from zoos.
On the one hand, you're keeping non-domesticated animals in cages, and that can't be good. On the other hand, they're like a wonderful opportunity for like rescuing animals that like never lived in the wild, also educating people, which can go a long way for conservation. So like I'm of mixed feelings with zoos.
Yeah, the problem is look, 30 years ago, you weren't born then. 30 years ago.
Yes, I was. I'm almost
Sure,
40.
Are you really? Nice.
Yeah, I'm 39. Thank you.
I was just trying to do a compliment.
I appreciate it. 30 years ago.
Going to the zoo was really the only option to get a decent experience with these wild animals. But now, they have these things called computers.
We have David Attenborough, who's a cyborg telling us about animals, probably.
Well, like you can see some pretty amazing footage, VR, like all that stuff should get rid of zoos in the next decade or so, in my opinion.
You know what's wild? 30 years ago, during 90s sitcoms, they just had like monkeys and chimpanzees and exotic animals like in the shows all the time with the actors. And you don't see that anymore. In fact, a lot of animals that they could have used easily in the 90s are now CGI. It's kind of interesting that like watching, I don't know, Seinfeld or Frasier or anything like that, there's like monkeys everywhere.
Yeah. But again, it's not the same though, right? You're like, oh, that's not a real monkey, even if it looks real. That's not a real monkey, so it's not as fascinating.
I just mean it was like totally normal to have exotic animals on television back then, and it's not so much anymore.
No, we don't appreciate that quite to the same extent. And Hollywood and TV, they don't want to upset, even if it's a small percentage of people that might get upset with that. But the thing that sort of interests me about this Kiko case is I spoke to a friend of mine who used to work at the zoo. And when we talked about this, and this is before we knew exactly what happened, we just knew that it had something to do with the door. She said, oh, yeah, they have these giant automatic doors and they close too slowly. And so even, the last decade, they would say, we got to watch out when you close it. We got to make sure the giraffes are far enough away because they may all of a sudden to try and make a run for it. And they want to go back into the original room and they can get trapped. So there was not the safety, I'm guessing, there's not the safety mechanism in place that when you get close to it, it stops. My garage door, I've tried many times to get it to shut on my foot. It doesn't shut on my foot.
Same with the elevators in like 99% of buildings. Kids, don't try this at home in case you're in the 1% of old or broken elevators that can kill you. But I just mean like this is not complicated technology to have a door that when it closes if something's resisting it to just open again.
Yeah, so this is going to be one of those things where if that's the situation, they will put in the safety protocols now after a tragedy already happened. So, look, I'm not a big fan of zoos. I haven't been for a long, long time. I'm not happy this happened, obviously. And poor Mistari and her little calf that's going to be born soon, he's going to be going into a fatherless home.
I want to move the conversation about exotic animals in captivity, away from zoos a little bit. R.I.P. giraffe. This is not an uplifting one. I'm oversold this one. Even if you hate giraffes, I feel like this one's still a sad one. For example, if this happened to a tarantula, I would be upset, even though I don't like spiders. But moving the conversation to exotic animal cafes, which are varying degrees of popular around the world. Like I once went to Asia with my friends and they all went to an owl cafe. I slept in that day, but it was just like something weird about it, you know? Like these are not domesticated animals. These are not animals you would otherwise keep as a pet. In many cases, not even legal to keep as a pet. And yet these cafes let you interact with them. I don't really get it.
The issue, they make it seem better because you're sipping coffee or drinking green tea. And that's a nice, calm cultural experience. Not for the owls. In fact, out of all the animals in the studies that they did regarding the ethics of keeping these animals at these cafes, birds and especially owls ranked sort of the worst regarding their behavior and their nutrition. There's music playing. People are touching these owls. They're tethered to their little perch so they can't fly away. Stress is a major problem in birds of prey and various birds, but especially owls. So very, very dangerous. So good on you, David, for being lazy and sleeping.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't this great moral decision that I'm making it seem like it was. I just didn't want to get up at like 8 a.m. on vacation.
Maybe it was subconscious.
We're going to continue this conversation as to whether exotic animal cafes, even cat cafes, are a good thing. We are here with Dr. Cliff Redford, who is definitely 100% a veterinarian. He does not practice veterinarian medicine. He does it. All right? We'll be back talking about exotic animal cafes in a minute.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
It's Pet Talk. We are talking about pets. It is Vet Talk. We are talking to a certified veterinarian. His name is Dr. Cliff Redford, and before the break, we were discussing exotic animal cafes. Not a great place for owls. What are some of the other examples of exotic animal cafes? Cliff Redford, welcome to the show also.
Thank you for having me back again. I didn't even know these existed. I knew about cat cafes. We've got one down the street from my practice. And I work with a cat rescue that is looking to have a cat cafe. Now, that's for the purpose of then finding homes. Is like doing when you do yoga with puppies.
These are also domesticated animals. I think this is an important distinction.
Yeah, huge thing. So these exotic animal cafes, it's this cute little trend, but obviously a possible welfare crisis. They became very popular in China, Taiwan, Japan, but now there's some in the U.S. There's a capybara, those giant rodent things. There's a capybara, one in the U.K. and another one in Florida. They have everything from owls, as we talked about, meerkats, otters, snakes, penguins. What about the penguins, David? Someone's going to have to be a real fan of your show to recognize the reference. What about the penguins?
This is a bizarre reference where Cliff and I were around a guy who was talking about penguins too much. That's the joke.
So as I'm reading on this, about these different species, the veterinarian in me is saying, okay, these animals should not be handled. I don't think anyone's going to argue that you shouldn't be going to a coffee shop and then hanging out with penguins, that's probably not very good for the penguins. The otters, while you're drinking coffee, while you're having food, due to public health issues, the otters are not allowed to swim. So they're going to be out of the water for hours at a time. And then I started to think about the diseases. And that's a serious problem. So the research was very, very clear that these guys, they obviously carry salmonella. Not obviously, some of them carry salmonella. Cryptosporidium is a parasite that people can get from a lot of these species. And you're eating and you're, probably using your hands if you're having the little tea biscuits and the little cookies and stuff. And Cryptosporidium is basically going to give you the nastiest gut rot for a couple of weeks. That's a medical term, by the way.
Yeah, I know. You can also get it from drinking too much grape juice. I got it when I was a kid.
Gut rot?
Gut rot. It's a real medical term.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is not a good idea. It's not a good idea, period. So I don't, there's no debate. I'm going to say there's no debate for this. But let's talk about cats. So they started talking about, these experts are saying, well, cats evolved being mostly solitary animals. And although they've been domesticated, they still most cats don't love the attention of dozens of people and hanging out with a whole bunch of cats. So you would have to make sure, if you're going to support this, that the cats have been properly selected, that they really enjoy hanging out with people. And there are cats that are like that. Now the cats can jump up and sort of hide a little bit and go up onto their tall climbers, their little cat trees in these cat cafes. So it's a little bit different, but I don't know, man. I think I'm just going to have my coffee and actually have a conversation with the person beside me and not try and distract from that conversation and play with some animal.
Fair enough. Okay. And also, don't overcrowd. Make sure that there's a space for the cats who are more solitary to, I don't know, be solitary. Just make sure it's not a derelict conditions at this cat cafe you're supporting.
I think with cat cafe, the only thing is it better be let's try and adopt these cats. That should be the end goal. We are finding homes for these cats. Then if there is any sort of stress, and that's minimal, you can at least say, okay, but we're finding them their forever home, and that's a big problem. But yeah, it's all of these animal cafes. Why do we do this? Why do we link to things like this? It's social media. Everyone's trying to get cool photos.
Getting the likes. I'm in it for the likes. The likes, the thumbs ups, the hearts, the comments, the DMs, the threats. Sorry, I'm going too far. Okay, let's move to a new research study about pets getting old, particularly cats or dogs, and helping them live longer and happier lives. Let's do something uplifting. We did this horrible story about the giraffe dying and these animal cafes, which aren't great. Let's move to something uplifting.
Yeah, and I love talking about this. We've had a lot of these conversations on your show last year, just a couple of months ago, and good on you. Thank you for allowing us to talk about this, David. So this article, this trend or this thought basically just focuses on healthy aging. Too often people will accept in their pets that they're getting slower, that they're losing their senses, that their appetite's decreasing, and they'll say, well, they're getting old. Well, yes, they're aging, but age is not a disease. There are diseases associated with aging. So how about we focus on allowing them to age properly in a healthy manner, gracefully, exactly. And so there are these sort of 6 steps that they talked about. The first one is making the environment more accessible for your pet. So we all know mobility is going to be an issue. So having ramps so your dog can get up onto the couch, or your cat who can no longer jump up onto the counter, assuming you want them on the counter, have different steps so they can go 1, 2, 3 up onto the counter. It helps them physically to still be able to move. It keeps them from getting depressed. It allows them to explore. It gives them some exercise. It allows them to be more social. So basically making small arrangements, small changes to your household so that the animal can still move around as easily. additional access points. And that basically means maybe there should be more than one water dish. And don't just lift up your toilet seat. There should be more than one water dish when your animal's older, because they don't want to walk all the way to the other side of the mansion that you live in, David.
Yes.
To have a drink.
All 2 square feet of my home.
That's right.
And maybe like an additional litter box or an accessible litter box.
All these things. And then be calm and patient when your elderly pet is showing new behaviors. Recognize that their cognitive function declines, their senses decline. And so just, you got to be patient with them, which makes sense.
All right, my cat's already an idiot. I'm worried about this cognitive decline.
Yeah, well, you know what? You need to stimulate his mind more. That is part of that is step number 4. Intellectual games, little puzzle feeders, all these things, get them to do crossword puzzles. All these things.
Not the New York Times one. That one's too hard.
Sudoku or whatever. Yeah, that's right. And then, there's some dietary changes you need to think about. Higher fiber, lower fat, lower calories, some supplementation.
Yeah, there are special foods for elderly animals, special mixes and stuff.
Yeah, and it makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. These all life stage brand foods are not a good idea, because they're basically puppy food or kitten food. And I'm 52 years old. I don't eat what I did when I was 12, and I'm going to have to eat differently when I'm 80. That's just the reality. The last one, I did not put this in. They did, is go to the vet a little bit more often. If your animal is elderly.
And you're compromised. You can't recommend that, although it seems like it would be a good idea.
Yeah, if you're going to the doctor, I go to the doctor more often. Of course, my doctor's a veterinarian.
I promised my girlfriend I'd get a colonoscopy for my 40th, and that'll be in a few months.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
Well, we went from uplifting to disgusting in the true fashion of the show. Dr. Cliff Redford, check out his podcast. It is called Vet Life on whatever app you stream your podcasts. Cliff, thank you for joining me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, David. Talk to you later.
In group chats with friends and on the internet are mom support groups for new mothers. But one celebrity has recently done a tell-all about her toxic mom group and why she broke up with them. Who was it and what's the juicy tea? We'll spill that in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The last show with David Cooper.
There is an actress causing a stir in Hollywood for speaking out against her toxic mom group. Imagine saying to your mom group chat, y'all are too toxic for me, I'm leaving. Well, why did it happen? That is what we're going to discuss with Caitlin Green, a media personality. She co-hosts the Jan Arden podcast, and she is a delight. Caitlin, welcome to the show. And yes, I'm talking about you.
Not Ashley Tisdale. And I'm glad that we figured out how to pronounce her last name, because this person to me hasn't been famous for such a long time that when I've been talking about her, I've been saying Teasdale, because I really feel like my brain has just said, nah, this isn't a real celebrity. So good for her for writing this essay in The Cut that now has her back in the headlines, because everyone's talking about her.
Did she leave Hollywood to be a mom? And if you're not sure the answer to that question, it's okay. But yeah, I don't think she's been in a movie for 3 or 4 years now.
No, she hasn't. She was on High School Musical. That's probably her biggest claim to fame. And then was sort of professionally online, very photographed in LA, and found herself in a kind of famous and famous adjacent group of moms in Hollywood that included Hilary Duff, Mandy Moore, and singer Meghan Trainor, amongst a bunch of other people who were stylists and fashion designers. And that's the group that she's been calling toxic.
Speaking of mom support groups, at the risk of derailing, there's a reality show called The Secret Wives of Mormon Lives, or Lives of Secret Mormons, or whatever.
Yeah, close.
And it's about a mom group who I think what really unites them is dancing videos on TikTok. It's not exactly clear, but they're all sleeping with each other, cheating on each other under the guise of a highly religious framework. But it really is like a mom support group. And I wasn't really aware of these structures. I guess I shouldn't be surprised until I saw the show. I don't have kids.
Side note, I know you have one. Is this a common thing for moms to get together, whether it's a group chat, a Facebook group, a loosely knit community of creators, to have these closely knit mom groups?
Yeah, so it's so funny to hear you refer to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives in this like distant way. I'm obsessed with that show. And so what they call themselves is Mom Talk. And yes, you're right. The biggest thing that bonds them was making dancing videos together. And they really took off during lockdown periods for a lot of people when everyone was glued to their phones. And they say it's a support group. I really think it's a group of people who want to be main characters. And that's really what they have in common. And
that's why they fight so much. It's like, you're not the main character, I'm the main character. That is the subtext of every fight on the show.
Precisely. And so they all have main character energy. They all fight with each other for top girl status in the group. And it is compelling in a high school-ish way to watch. I have consumed anything to do with them. Some of them you like more than others. Some of them you root more than others. One season they're the villain, the next they're the hero, and so it goes. So yeah, the mom group thing is real, I'm told. There are mom groups out there on Facebook. They will usually be sort of like designated by neighborhood. There's one in my neighborhood. I know lots of people who are a part of it. They have text chats. And like what they really have in common is you're off work for a year at the same time. You want to get together with someone in a park and sit with your babies and not have a nervous breakdown alone at home. So I think that that's sort of like where it begins for a lot of regular people. And then for like celebrities, they want to kind of like post about the fact that they're hanging out and that their mom's hanging out together. And they like the visibility aspect of it. And when they're all part of this group together, it's like they're stronger together than they are individually. And so they get more eyeballs on them together than they do individually.
And you'd think there'd be elements like upliftingness, support, visibility, bonding, community. You'd think these things would be good. Enter Ashley Tisdale saying, no, the one I was in, toxic AF. F standing for fudge, I'm sure. Government regulators, if you're listening, and you're probably not. And if you are, I think I'm flattered, to be honest. Back on track here. Okay, well, what were some of the things she was talking about? What are some of the things that would get you to exit a mom support group similar to this one?
So she said that what was really happening was something that I think a feeling many people are familiar with, mom group or not, is the feeling of everyone's hanging out without me. So she joined the group. They started inviting her to events. And then so the social media of it all ruins things because she would notice that they were all posting, hanging out at an event, hanging out at someone's house, going to dinner, and she wasn't included. And that started to hurt her feelings. Understandably so. She felt like they didn't make a big enough deal about one of her kids' birthdays. She just said she started to feel like it was mean girl high school stuff. And so she announced her departure in the group chat. Instead of just doing the usual, like, I'm going to phase this out, I'm going to spend less time and energy here, she announced, this is really toxic. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And then there's a fallout from it.
When people say everyone's hanging out without me, I think there's two main situations there that can be going on. One is everyone is hanging out without you, for sure. Mm-hmm. The other is you're kind of saying that, and it's more about you, your own insecurities, your own inability to realize that, hey, sometimes in friend groups, there are things that go on, and for whatever reason, you're excluded, and that's okay, and you'll be invited to the next one, and Sally will be excluded for whatever reason from the next one, and that's okay. It's a normal part of being an adult in a friend group. I wonder which one it is.
Well, that was the thing that I think landed for a lot of people who weren't a fan of the essay that she wrote. It was that this is a one-sided essay, right? No one else is getting what the other moms experienced in this group. And everyone having been a part of a friend group in their life knows how it feels, and it sucks to feel left out of things. But you also know what it feels like to be accused of leaving someone out of things when that either wasn't your intention or when you're just really saying what it comes down to is, it's not that deep. We weren't that close. You and I didn't connect that well. So of course, I'm not inviting you to every single thing that I do. And if that makes you feel a certain way, then yeah, maybe we can't hang out because you have an outsized view of our relationship. So I think that was challenging.
This next point I'm going to bring up, you actually gave me when we wrote about when we were talking about discussing this on the radio, so I just want to give you credit. But this idea of publicly announcing to a group chat, you're all too toxic, I'm leaving, and then Caitlin Green exits the chat. I don't know why I'm choosing you in the example here. You got to really question if someone, like, that's kind of a toxic behavior, right?
It is. Like, if I don't want to hang out with people anymore, guess what I do? I don't hang out with them. But I don't drop a bomb into a group chat because you're looking for a response. You're looking for conflict. You're looking for something. It's like, no, please don't go. Or you think that's going to happen? Everyone's just going to call you a B word behind your back is what's going to happen. So I don't know. I don't announce my departure. It's not how I operate in life. And I would encourage everyone, a la this Ashley Tisdale drama, to also not do that because now she's getting a bunch of bad press over it.
Not to bring it back to the wively secrets of lives, Mormon wives or whatever. There was one character who exits the group chat because she's mad.
Yep.
Everyone's like, why are you doing that? Are you trying to say you're not my friend? And no one reaches out. And then she gets mad at the group for being like, I left the group chat and then no one reached out to say, are you okay?
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you nuts? Like, this is main character energy and I hate it.
That's what it is. And it's not super relatable to people in the general public. I mean, we certainly will watch it and engage with the drama as you do on the Secret Mormon Lives of Wives and as you do with this Ashley Tisdale stuff. But like, it's not super relatable in terms of how they're responding. And because Ashley Tisdale is really not that famous lately, her rep had to come out and then say, oh, no, this wasn't about Hillary Duff and Meghan Trainor and Mandy Moore, because their fans start coming out in support of them. But then everyone does the sleuthing to realize that Ashley doesn't actually follow any of them anymore, so it seems like there is drama. And then Hillary Duff's husband, I think it takes a lot for a husband to get involved. Hillary Duff's husband photoshopped a picture of himself dressed in exactly the same manner to look exactly the same way as Ashley Tisdale's The Cut article image, and he captions it on his social, when you're the most self-obsessed tone-deaf person on earth, other moms tend to shift focus to their actual toddlers.
Well, that's toxic, but honestly, love to see it for the pop culture drama.
I know. So there is something here. There is drama. Clearly, it did involve Hillary Duff to the extent that her husband commented on it. And so, yeah, if you're wondering why is everyone talking about Ashley Tisdale, I thought she was not famous anymore, there's actually kind of a good reason.
Well, I guess there's no bad press, just no press, and we haven't seen her in a movie in a while, so she's getting press. We're talking about her. So from some vantage point, good work, Ashley Tisdale.
She could have a Lifetime movie out of this.
Maybe what's the opposite of a Hallmark movie?
Oh, yeah, you're right. What would that be? Like a Starz Network drama? Yeah, that could be
or
it.
a Stephen King horror film about Ashley Tisdale's toxic mom group.
Yeah, I would watch.
All right. Well, Caitlin Green, you can hear her on the Jan Arden podcast, where she is a contributor. She's also a media personality. Caitlin, my goodness, what a pleasure it was talking about this story with you. Thanks for being here.
Always so fun.
Did you know The Last Show has a podcast? On it, you can hear entire nights of the radio program that you missed, hear interviews that you loved, and more. If you head to our website for details, you can find details there. The address, www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Or just search The Last Show David Cooper on your favorite podcast app. Subscribe to hear those juicy nuggets. Up next, a quandary. Should you be allowed to use AI to resurrect your dead loved ones, to have video chats with them?
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The Last Show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
What if a large language model, perhaps a tool like ChatGPT, could suck in all the writings of your lost loved ones, people who have passed? And then what if they could watch videos of your loved ones and then maybe clone their voice, even clone an image of them? We could end up in the not so distant future in a world where we could have sort of weird AI visits with those who have passed. And that opens up a lot of ethics questions that we're going to tackle here with bioethics professor at the University of Toronto and environmentalist Kerry Bowman. Kerry, welcome to the program.
Happy to be here, David.
It's a simple yes or no question. Should we be allowed to use AI to resurrect our lost loved ones? Or is the answer maybe?
I'm going to say the answer is maybe. This is so very, very new that we simply, there's a lot of questions that we have to answer before we move forward. And, one of the first ones that comes to me as an ethicist is really consent.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in the public, I mean, you hear this in media and TVs and stuff. Oh, the person's dead, therefore consent doesn't matter. That's really not how consent works. So, even if a person is deceased, consent really, really, really does matter. Would they have been wanted, would they have ever wanted to have been resurrected in any digital form whatsoever? So I think that matters to a very, very large extent. And, this technology is emerging quite quickly, and it's got different names. Some of them are pretty gruesome, like death bots and grief bots, and I'm now speaking about the deceased. And look, when it gets into entertainment, if we have time, we could talk about that because rock stars and things are being, resurrected. So, I'm a person that has done grief work with people in the past. I'm a former social worker, and I'm trying to keep an open mind on this. And the real authorities will be people that have had experience with it rather than what people think should happen. And we just don't have a lot of evidence on that yet.
And for me, like, I sort of think, well, I'm dead, I don't care. And even if that is true, like the person who's dead, they shouldn't have a say. What about the family? What about the loved ones? What about the ones with whom they kind of like own the estate, if you will? Not just in a financial sense, but in a more kind of like general sense. What about the ex-wife or the current wife or the children? Like, don't these people have a say about the use of the likeness of the person?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. And that's what it comes down to. So not only is there the consent of the person, but many of us have siblings. I have 3 siblings. If there was a deceased parent, and I decided to create some kind of holograph or some kind of interactive format, which would also be potentially online, what would my siblings think of that? So it would be the parent themselves, but it would also be them. And it matters to them as well, because it may be very reassuring to some people and profoundly disturbing to others. We simply don't know. So, one of the arguments also with most emerging technologies, this is being driven far more by market forces than it is for what is good for people. This is kind of the way it goes. Companies are jumping on board, and, you can work through a lot of grief with this, etc. So, let's imagine you've lost a family member, and there's a whole lot of video, there's a whole lot of audio, there's a treasure trove of emails, and, AI is really able to construct quite I don't know what words to use, a facsimile of this person. Um, does that help with the grieving process, or does that freeze the grieving process? That is the thing. So some people would say, well, it helps with my grieving because I can still talk to my brother, my wife, my father, whatever it may be. Other psychologists are thinking that it's kind of a liminal space where you can't move on because you're still interacting with the person. And, there's something also, no matter how much data you have, there's something very artificial about it because they're not alive. And they're not alive in, January of 2026, and they're not interacting with the world that we're living in right now. So there's something very artificial about it. So yes, it may have some benefits, but boy, it's really got a lot of risk because it's not a real interaction.
What if I write in my will that I don't mind if my girlfriend Miranda goes on my computer? She has to delete my browser history first. She has to do that. But after the browser history is deleted, she can read my emails, my text messages, my pictures, my videos. She can put it into some AI model, build a full profile with me, and I don't mind if she interacts with a grief bot of me. For someone that does that, do you see much problem with it? If it's very kind of like written down before the person passes and very clear about who can use it and in what way?
So I don't see a consent problem with that. And a lot of people don't take the consent problem seriously, but I do. And I think it's very important. So I think there's a big ethical hurdle that you have reached. Whether it is good for the surviving person, whether they are going to be able to, work things out, or whether they're going to be frozen in some kind of grief cycle, we just don't know. And, not all people are the same. Now, look, here's another thing, David, that's very important with these emerging technologies is, you can edit them. So, if you had a complicated relationship with someone and there was often cycles of conflict, you can just edit that right out, right? It's gone. So you're really not interacting in a lot of ways with the same person anymore. So you could argue, I had a nightmare situation getting along with my mother, and now that she's gone and there's this grief bot, I've worked out all this conflict. But how long and how deep is it? And is it real? Because it's not really there. But, I'm purposely cycling back to as they design these things, some people are saying that they'll design them in ways that as the world moves forward, they'll be able to absorb information. This is a non-living person. This is their profile. Will be able to absorb information about the changing world. Let's say I've had another child, or the politics has changed, or whatever. But this is extremely artificial. You're making absolute guesses as to how a person is going to interact with a changing world because we simply don't know. So there's really an artificial element to all of it.
It's pretty wild. I don't know. It kind of sounds like a sci-fi plot from the 90s of Star Trek where someone, has a dead loved one in the simulator on the spaceship. There's some conflict they delete and then the loved one changes and then they realize it's not the loved one at all. And I feel like these moral quandaries are not new. We're just on the precipice of actually having to face them rather than them being science fiction.
No, and let's be honest. When we look at, and I'm talking about loss here. So when people have lost people, I've worked with a lot of people, as I mentioned before, I'm a former medical social worker. I've seen a lot of this. People will talk to photographs of someone. That's not crazy. That's just love and that's respect and all those things. People will have mementos. People will visit graves 12 months of the year. People will keep lockets of hair. Some people will even go for seances trying to connect back. They'll try and create lucid dreams to bring the person back. So this is not new human behavior. People crave people that they miss. And so it's kind of an extension of that. But it's got a level of reality and a level of artificialness that's unprecedented, like never before. So there's a huge human instinct to want to do these types of things. But I would argue, in advance of this interview, I didn't have a huge amount of time, but because I teach a course on emerging technologies, and I want to teach this very topic in the months ahead. So I went for the evidence, the way we're supposed to do these days, and less people do. But there's not much. There's not much at all, right? It's just too early to be sure. There's psychologists and various people coming up with opinions, and I guess I'm in that category too. But, the evidence is simply we just don't know yet.
I hesitate to say legislatures should regulate how grief bots work, but I just don't know what the solution to this quandary is. Well,
no,
Kerry,
I don't either. I get nervous, though, when market forces drive most of this, because what the patterns that we see with emerging technologies is they tend to be oversold. They tend to be linked to infomercials, stay in touch with your loved one or keep loving whatever they're going to do. And, it really is driven much more by profit than it is anything else.
There was a Black Mirror episode where, someone's medical technology that was helping them live would have them then speak advertisements in order for the medical technology to work. And I worry that our loved ones, our resurrected loved ones, will be selling us stuff. Well, Kerry Bowman is a bioethics professor at the University of Toronto and an environmentalist. Kerry, thank you for talking to me today.
You're very welcome, David.
Up next, a former NFL player is suing his ex, an online influencer, over explicit comments she made about their sex life. What about free speech? Are you allowed to sue someone for that? We'll ask a lawyer in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Former NFL player Matt Khalil is suing his ex-wife, an influencer named Haley Khalil, over explicit comments she made about their sex life online. So what is that legal line between oversharing on the internet, free speech, and defamation? Well, let's ask a lawyer. I am here with counsel and head of entertainment law group with Goodman's LLP, David Zitzerman, to weigh in on this one. David, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks, David.
So am I entitled to share private bedroom details on my radio show? Is anyone entitled to share intimate details about their life while going on a live feed online? Like, what is oversharing? What can get you sued?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, this particular story hits home for me because my son's name is Matt, my middle son, and his girlfriend's name is Haley. And I can really relate to the story. So to answer your question, in Ontario, since 2016, the Ontario Superior Court created a tort called public disclosure of private facts. And this particular case is a textbook example of that tort. In other words, it's a civil remedy. You can sue for invasion of privacy. And it's applicable where there is a public disclosure of a private fact or matter. In this case, it obviously had to do with the sexual performance and size parameters of the ex-husband.
Ever the lawyer. You're saying that so diplomatically.
Yeah, and there needs to be a lack of consent, and obviously there was no consent here. Has to be very offensive to a reasonable person. I think unlike Taylor Swift's Wood, which you could argue is very complimentary of Travis Kelce, this is probably considered to be offensive to many people. And there has to be no legitimate public interest in the disclosure. So if you have those elements in Ontario, you can sue under this tort for public disclosure of private facts. So if this case was in Ontario, I think the plaintiff would have a great case.
I am not 1990s Howard Stern by any means, but assuming I was, and I was kind of a shock jock, and I talked about intimate details, and then I got involved with someone while I was already doing that job. This individual knew I did things like that, and then I did it. Would that be a defense?
I think a lot of it has to do with context, right? So we know that public figures have less privacy than private figures. So, for example, if the Prime Minister of Canada has an affair, CTV News can have a story about that, or Chorus can have a story on the radio, and that would be considered to be a matter of public interest. If my next door neighbor has an affair, who's a dentist, very good, or a prosthodontist who lives next to me, that's not news. So some of it has to do, obviously, whether you're a public figure or you're a private figure. But generally speaking, even public figures have the right to, certain elements of privacy. So they have less privacy, but they still have an element of privacy as well.
Look, I'm not saying what this influencer did was right, but isn't the story hers too? Like, she was intimate with her ex-husband. She knew things about his private area and its size. Isn't that her narrative too? And isn't she allowed to say it? And isn't that a part of free speech?
I think the answer is no from a legal standpoint. In other words, could she say, I had a bad sex life with my husband? Sure, she could probably say that. On Real Housewives, I think every second housewife talks about that, right?
Yes.
So, that kind of a thing she could probably say. But when you get into kind of intimate personal details, in this particular case, I understand there were comments on the size of the manhood of her ex-husband, whether there could be surgery to correct it. I mean, that's really granular details that are unnecessary, and that's where it crosses the line into invasion of privacy. So I don't know. I believe American law is similar to Canadian law. As a matter of fact, I believe that, we've imported some of these American legal concepts into Canada, like the tort I mentioned, public disclosure, was originally an American tort that we imported. So I imagine the law will be roughly similar, but certainly in Canada, this would be a problem. And the thing about Canada is that for years, it was very hard to assert a claim for invasion of privacy. There were even Ontario courts that said there is no such thing as invasion of privacy. So it was a fantastic time to talk about, your partner's, the size of their manhood in those days, right? But ever since
the heyday of talking about
it was the
if you will.
heyday of talking about sexual stuff about your former partner.
Got it.
But then in 2012, there was a seminal case called Jones and Tingay, which created this right of intrusion upon seclusion. So in other words, the first kind of civil action for disclosing private information about somebody. And that was followed by this 2016 case that created public disclosure of private facts. So now we have a couple of civil lawsuits for invasion of privacy. We've always had privacy statutes in several Canadian provinces like BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. The Quebec Civil Code has always dealt with privacy as well. So now there's a lot of different ways to sue for invasion of privacy that we did not have even 10 years ago.
Taking a step back, I want to talk about a common misconception about free speech, and I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong because I am not a lawyer. I am not your lawyer, and this is not legal advice. That's my favorite phrase. But like free speech, that's really between you and the state, you and the country. Like the government can't throw you in jail for saying that your partner's manhood didn't work for you. But that doesn't protect you from them suing you. It's really between you and the government in terms of like criminal behavior. But that doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want without consequences.
100% correct. Like if you think about what's a tort, we talk about torts in law school, right? A tort's like an injury. I've injured you. That's what so you can have a breach of contract claim, right? We have a contract, we breach it, right? A tort claim is because I've injured you. So how can I injure you? I can defame you. I can say David Cooper, he loves, molesting young children.
Oh,
That's
boy.
defamation.
We went there. All right.
That's defamatory, right? So if I said that in a public forum, you say, I want to sue this guy. That's not true. He can't say that about me. And likewise, invading privacy is another type of a tort. So as you correctly say, it's not like the RCMP or even ICE will come and pick you up because of this, but you can have a civil lawsuit. So in this case, you have the former NFL player, Matt Khalil, suing his ex-wife, Haley Khalil. And the basis of it is essentially, they talk about intrusive behavior, but it's essentially an invasion of privacy claim.
And it's a civil matter, and your right to free speech, it kind of, I don't know if it applies so much there.
There are limits to free speech. They famously say you can't yell fire in a packed a movie theater, for example, and cause a stampede. Like, there are all sorts of limits on free speech. So, we love free speech. I personally, because I'm in the arts and I'm an entertainment lawyer, I'm a big advocate for free speech. I really don't like when free speech is chilled. But at some point you cross the line, and that might be, if I defame you or if I start talking about, your sexual parts. Those are examples of where you might be crossing the line.
All right, I'm going to retain you. You're going to be my lawyer because now I'm worried my ex-wife is going to reach out to you. And so if she does, that's a conflict of interest because you're my lawyer.
Absolutely.
But I kid, of course. But this influencer, Haley Khalil, she built I know I kind of said this earlier, but she's built a brand on openness and humor. I'm not actually sure whether she met her husband before she built that brand, but let's just say for a hypothetical, he went into the relationship knowing that she was an influencer who talked openly online. Surely that must help her case.
Yes, I think that if, obviously she's going to have a lawyer. Her lawyer, I think, has already said that the claim is without merit. And obviously her lawyer is going to defend her. And I'm sure that her lawyer will try to make those kind of arguments. In other words, to say he understood what he was getting into. He was, he was married to somebody who did a lot of public disclosure about their relationship generally, et cetera, et cetera. So certainly her lawyer can make all those arguments. But I still believe, based on at least the Ontario tort that we know and love here in Ontario, that he would have a better argument. Because the bottom line is that there were many ways that she could have described problems in her relationship, including in bed and so forth, without getting into this kind of graphic detail. And the detail that she got into wasn't necessary, and I don't believe it was a legitimate concern to the public.
Well, David Zitzerman is counsel at Goodman's LLP, where he heads the entertainment law group. David, this has been a great chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much, David.
Up next, why the internet loves a man who was shopping at Target in New York City. Why is this an unusual story? The man was riding a horse. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Save a horse, ride a cowboy was not advice that somebody in New York City took when he rode his horse, not in a pasture, not in a ring, not at a rodeo, but rode his horse through a packed Target store. We are joined by special horse correspondent in London, England, Tony Five, to discuss this story. Tony, welcome to the show.
Good day, my friends. Good day, my friends listening. How are you?
I am well, your friend listening, assuming I am listening. I love when people pull stunts like this. I don't know. This guy's like an urban cowboy, which I think is that even a thing? Was that ever a thing?
I think an urban cowboy is a fair description. These things annoy me just to get sort of viral updates and people. It just annoys people. So for the sake of people who are listening, this chap gets on his horse and rides into a Target store. Now, we don't have Target stores in the UK, so I imagine it's like a kind of multi-purpose store, like a DIY store, is that right?
Yeah, do you have Walmart?
But Walmart here was bought out, so it's like a supermarket here, so it would be like your Kroger's.
You don't have like a mega store where they sell like a little bit of everything and it's a little bit discounted, and you don't have that?
I guess it would be akin to like a large supermarket, like a big Tesco's or a big Sainsbury's.
Yeah,
So
but
I'm
you
looking
can't buy
at
like a drill at Tesco or like an
you can.
LCD TV and like a PlayStation and a pair of underwear. Okay, I thought Tesco was just groceries.
No. Tesco's have got like a food section. It's got obviously clothing section, and it's got a like DIY section. But enough about Tesco's, unless we're trying to get their sponsorship.
That would be great.
I have never had the issue of going to my local Tesco's, doing my food shopping, maybe buying a drill, as you say, and a chap with a horse walking through the store.
So you're saying, okay, this guy's just trying to get attention, just trying to get viral. And I concede that is annoying as a class of things to do. However, if people are going to go viral for annoying stuff, riding your horse with a cowboy hat on through a Target, to me, is one of the better ways to do it. And so there's people doing it, like there's people on the street doing these like pranks that like hurt people. Or harassing people just for views. And those people, I look down on like you look down on this horse guy. But I think in the grand taxonomy of people who go viral, riding your horse with a cowboy hat is a better way to say that, through Target.
I mean, that would be better. If there was a cowboy with a horse riding him through Walmart or Target, I'd love that. That would get my viewership.
I am with you on that. Okay, back to this story. Not only does he ride the thing, not only are staff telling him, you can't be in here with that thing, the horse decides to go to the bathroom in Target. I think that's when customers get really baffled.
Baffled? I think more like, horrified. I just worry, on a scale of like 1 to really annoying, you're right. Where they pull pranks on people and it hurts them, I agree. The horse going through, you're right, it is funny. But then I wonder, what if this horse was to just bolt or kick somebody in the head? That's what I'm worried about. It's a wild animal, right?
It's a domesticated animal, but horses are notoriously jittery.
Jittery,
they spook
exactly.
very easily. Which is so wild to me that we've domesticated this animal. Tens of thousands of years of humanity, we've been riding these things. But if somebody claps too loud behind it, the thing jumps and gets scared.
Yeah, and
people used to ride these things into battle. But what if a cannon goes off and the horse gets scared? I don't know. They kind of scare me because they're 10 million pounds.
I mean, they are huge. I don't know whether you've been up close and personal to a horse. They are massive, and they're apparently great lovers as well.
Fun fact about me, I taught horseback riding at a summer camp when I was 17.
You are joking.
Nope, 100%. I mean, these were old horses. They were 15 years old. They were beaten down. They were ready to die. And there was all these rich kids riding these broken down old horses that couldn't hurt you if they tried. They could barely trot. But for whatever reason, I needed a job and I was a bad kid. And so they gave me horseback riding instructor. I had no idea how to do it. But the woman who ran the stable, she knew how to do it. And so I just kind of let her do the real work.
You have the most absolutely incredible and obscene life. Loving to see your resume saying horseback rider, tech wizard, and radio show host. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it has fallen off my resume. I did do it for 3 months when I was 17, and now I'm 39. I've had 1 or 2 jobs since then. But yes, I did do that. Okay, back on track here. The staff said to him, "What are you doing? Get out of the store with that horse." Okay, someone else said, "You don't bring a horse into a store." These are reasonable responses.
Do you know what? When you said it like that, it sounds like an old cowboy movie. You don't bring a horse into the store here, boy. And it's apparently, it just sounds very sort of old saloon talk. But it's random that it was in the middle of a Target.
All right, let's do our next story here. This is reported by Vice. They went through American Journal of Emergency Medicine.
Yep.
They went through the National Electric Injury Surveillance System published by the Consumer Product Safety Commission in the U.S. Yep. They dug through the data, the medical data. They went through 39,000 hospital visits for last year. And they tallied some of the worst items that were found in the hospital in people's behinds. And Tony, I could not think of a better list to go through than this one with you.
I mean, in terms of what lists, what are favourable lists, this is a very good one. And I can't believe it's categorised and held in government records. This is government recorded data.
It is. I don't think we'll get through all 25, but let's at least go through some of them. Number 1 is a full shampoo bottle. That wasn't just once, that was twice. 2 separate people, and one patient, when asked why they put the shampoo bottle there, they replied, and I love this reply, it's so honest. The reply was boredom.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. There's nothing on Netflix. There's nothing on the radio. I mean, it probably happens after this show finishes being on air. The majority
Maybe during the show.
Maybe during the show. I was going to say that during the show. But the fact that it was a full bottle of shampoo, so he then had to then pull it out. I'm assuming it's a him. He then had to pull it out and then wash his hair with it. Fantastic.
It is mostly middle-aged men who end up in the hospital with things that they cannot remove up the rear end for whatever reason. I don't know why middle-aged men. I guess we're a bored generation. I don't know.
I mean, the majority of them you can probably guess. They're sort of phallic shaped, and you can understand why. If people are into that sort of thing, I get it. But it's just like the odd things, like, you know, like a film canister. So I'm assuming when they say a film canister, that's the sort of old 35mm sort of battery-shaped film canister. Like, how bad are your photographs that you need to do that?
That does not develop your film, a little PSA. Another one, uncooked pasta. Again, as a home cook, I can tell you, I'm not a chef, but I'm a home cook. I do spend a lot of time thinking about cooking, and I watch a lot of cooking videos. I am not a certified chef. I've never worked in a restaurant, but I can say this definitively. That is not a way to turn uncooked pasta into delicious al dente pasta. That's all I'll say.
Well, al dente, yeah, okay. Well, there's 2 ones that really stood out for me. One was a sandal. Again, I have no idea at what stage boredom kicks in to the point where you look down at your feet, see a sandal and think, well, I know where that could go.
I have no words in response to that. And the other one?
And the best one, my favourite one, is a beard clipper. Now, bearing in mind, they did take precautions. They wrapped it in plastic. So these are sort of electric beard clippers. Put it up there, and then when he went to the hospital, they said, why on earth did you do that, young man? And he said, for constipation relief.
Again, this is not a certified medical treatment for that ailment. Not a lot of them are listed with explanations, but a baseball was removed from somebody's, and their explanation was to see what it felt like. And I think that's very honest. I think that's why a lot of people end up in the hospital with this predicament. But my advice to you is use an object that, has a wider base that can be removed, because otherwise you're going to end up in the hospital. And
PSA for those people who are planning on it or thinking about it, don't do anything that breaks. Don't think like a glass bottle or a light bulb. There's just no need for it.
Yeah, no light bulb. Oh, God. Well, Tony, will we have our jobs tomorrow after going through this list? That is unclear, but I enjoyed going through it with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, my friend. You have a wonderful day.
All right, that's a wrap on the night show. Thanks for tuning in. Do subscribe to our podcast. If you search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app like Apple or Spotify, we will pop up. Listen to interviews you loved again. For example, if you heard an interview that proves a point based on an argument you had with your mother-in-law 3 years ago, just send her a link to the podcast. That's a surefire way to get along with your mother-in-law. I'm David Cooper. This was The Last Show. We'll be back tomorrow night.
My name is Jordan, and I'd like to invite you to join me on The Canadian Gothic, a podcast covering stories of Canadian crime, mystery, and the offbeat. The Canadian Gothic blends the spirit of late-night talk radio with the depth of a documentary film and applies that approach to both developing stories and historical cases. So if you're drawn to the dark, mysterious, and offbeat, search for and subscribe to The Canadian Gothic wherever you find podcasts.
You were listening to Canadian Gothic.